Okay, hello everyone. So welcome to part 2 of the scan, I guess, processing in order to update our models. Okay, so what I'm showing you here is actually the finished product here in NX. Okay, so I've taken that sheet holder, excuse me, design. Let me just like so. Okay, so I've taken the scans that we had already. I've read them into NX and then done a bunch of stuff. So I'll kind of go through the steps actually by doing a fresh one. So what we do, we open NX and we're just going to do a model here. So let's call this sheet holder step 2 video, and then select the directory that you want to put this model into. So then we'll click OK, and this will take us into a brand new part. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is read in the scans. And for that, we need this polygon modeling tool. So typically it's not there. There's also these sets of tools called reverse engineering. So these two looks like they are somewhat overlapping in capabilities. But to get these on your this top set of menus, we would come over here to a blank area and do a right click and then check off these two. I actually I don't need the reverse engineering because I think we can get away with the polygon modeling. Okay, so just to let you know that there's also reverse engineering tools and they do similar sort of things. So the first thing we're going to do is read in the scans. So we're going to read in a mesh from cloud. Okay, and then the source is our file, and so we'll browse to that exported sheet holder file that I created, and it's that ASCII points file. And this takes a while, like a good 30 seconds, because there's about 2.5 million parts in that set of scans. So the only thing that I did after the last video was I took, I decreased, or I trimmed out some of the extra additional points, and then I think I adjusted some of the scans, just interactively aligned them. Okay, so this is this has now read them in, and you can see here vertex number is about 2.53 million. So, and you saw that warning here that if I'm over 500,000 points, then the system's going to lag. So let's take that to heart here and put it down to 400,000. And yes, so I think the default is keep all the points. So don't do that after you receive that, it's more than 500,000 points. I use this variable density option, so that what that does is it keeps the points where there's more curvature in the part and less where it's flatter. Okay, so I use this variable density. I otherwise use these other ones, and the only other thing I do is I move the smoothing right up to 100. Okay, and then I will say OK to this. Okay, so now it's going through and removing 2.1 million points and smoothing the resulting geometry. Okay, I'm just going to pause this if it takes to save time on the video. Okay, so I'm back. So that took a couple of minutes. So if your computer is somewhat limited in memory and whatever, this could be a test. Anyway, so we've come back here with 14 bodies, so I'll click OK. And we can maybe zoom in a bit here, take a look at the different convergent. So these are all what are called convergent bodies. So these are just pieces, separate pieces that have been sort of brought together. They're separate and distinct, and some of them are not very useful, admittedly. Okay. All right, so let's have a think about the part that we really want. So what we want, of course, what we're trying to do in the case study is to do some work on this pen, and the pen will be actually trying to write on this curved surface here. Okay, so we want a good characterization of this face. Okay, so that's number one. And then number two, what we want is the bottom. We want the spacing from the bottom here to the top to be fairly accurate, so that when we put this in our CAD model and we're doing the offline programming, the placement of the pen is going to be reasonably accurate when we test our program on the real device. Okay, so we want a good curvature or a good part here, and then we want this height. Now, unfortunately, the scans don't give us a whole heck of a lot of useful information that way. So perhaps if we're doing other scans in the future, that would be something to watch out for. Okay, so let's first of all turn off all the other geometry here and focus on that top. And I've tried a bunch of different strategies to getting a nice smooth curve here, and I'll show you the one that I came up with. So the first thing is we move now over to the Home tab. Let's create a datum plane, and we're going to create a datum plane in the YZ, like so. And yeah, okay, it's already, I've kind of tried it already, but what I recommend, so what I'm looking for is a smooth area all the way out. So it looked like there was one here. We might try like sort of in this zone. I thought about this one, but it looks like the edge here is not as far out. So I kind of went over here, and I can get a sense of what's going to happen if I pull this out here. Okay, and then kind of make this larger. So what I'm trying to avoid, I would like something all the way to the end. Okay, so the full length of the face, and then none of these sort of imperfections in the surface. So you'll notice here. So let's actually try this for this go around. Okay, so for it, I've got an offset here of 195. Okay, so that looks good. So I click OK there. Okay, so I have a datum plane now, and what I want to do now is divide this face using this datum plane, and then that will give me the curve that I can then use to create this part. So I go back to my polygon modeling, and now I choose the divide face, and I choose by region is what I want. I'm going to choose the facet region here. Yes. Oh, wait a sec. Yeah, by region. So the facet region that I want is this whole thing. Okay, so it's chosen that face. no, I do want by region. But where is my tool? Oh, maybe I've got the wrong tool here. Sorry. Let's try this again. Maybe it's the divide face. Okay, yeah, this looks right. Okay, so I choose this face. Yeah, this is the one. Okay, and then I choose the tool object. My tool object will be this plane, the data plane that I just created. And it should go ahead and divide it. Okay, so now I have a nice smooth curve here that I can use to make an extrusion. Okay, so I'll click OK there. And there we go. There's my divided face with that nice curve. Okay, so now I can go back to my modeling and do an extrude based on that. So I'm going to sketch here. Oh, wait a minute. What happened to my... Wait. Cancel. Where is my data plane? Oh, I have it turned off. Okay, so let's go back to trying again. Extrude. Sketch the section on this plane. Let's turn that around and maybe turn the X around, okay, so that I can see the word sketch here. And then I'll click OK. Okay, now what I want to do is to use this curve that I created, and I'm going to do that. I'm going to create a spline. Okay, and I'm going to specify the points. So I come in here. Now, make sure that I can choose, yeah, okay. So make sure you can choose this curve that we created, that divide line. And you may need to adjust the context. So make sure it's not within active sketch only, make sure it's within the working part, okay? So then we basically come along here, and we come along this curve, and we basically trace it out again. Now, we can't choose the curve. We could include this curve in the sketch, and then, but we can't use it directly. We have to recreate it, basically because there's quite a few spline points in this curve on the divide line, so we're just kind of minimizing those. Make sure it's always on this. Okay, and you may, let's see if I zoom in a bit more. Make sure it's there. Okay, and here we want the divide face point. Okay, so again, we're trying to follow along the scanned in face. Okay, and you need to make the points a little bit closer together as we start to curve. Okay, so just so the spline is able to better follow this curve. Okay. And I guess we can go right to the end there. Okay. All right, so now we have a nice spline. In this case, I'm using 46 points. I probably didn't need quite as many in this middle region, but that's okay. Okay, so then we click OK. Okay, so now we have a nice curve. Now what we want to do is create thickness. We're going to extrude this. So let's create an offset pattern, and we're going to choose the curves. Okay, so make sure you have connected curves so it gets them all. And spacing of about 3 millimeters seems to work fine. And then we'll click OK. All right, and then just to finish it off, we need to just connect these curves together. So we're going to go from here to here. Oh, did I choose the right? I hope I chose the right part. Okay, and then let's go back to the other end. And go from this point to, I think it was the spline, right? Right, okay, and I can tell it's good here because it's colored in this whole section, okay? Okay, cool. So then we click Finish. And there we are. Okay, now, the cool thing here that we're going to take advantage of is the distance. So the distance we can go from, we don't have to go from 0, we can go from some negative value. So we can pull that over roughly so it's this here. And then in the positive direction, we can go right over to that other edge. Whoops. There we go. Okay, and then we click OK. All right, so that's actually a really close fit to our scan points. Maybe a little bit off, but I think that's overall pretty good. It's not a particularly flat piece, as you can might imagine, because there was some welding being done on the bottom face. But anyway, so I'm reasonably happy with this. So the next thing we're going to do, let's turn on more of the, oh, and then here's the bottom, and even the bottom, we're not too fussed about the bottom. Okay, but let's turn on some more of these. Actually, turn on the rest of them. Okay, and what I suggest here then is to create, so remember I said we want this top face, which we've now captured, and now we want to know, or we want to capture in our model, this height from here to its mounting base. So I suggest we create another datum plane here and position it so that we capture that height. Okay, so let's do the XY plane. Okay, and then let's extend this out and over so that we get a sense of, is this the right height? Okay, so it's actually remembered my previous settings, and I think this is, you know, actually not so bad. Okay, let's make sure we've got it extended out, and perhaps 80 is a bit too high. Let's bring it down a couple. What did I have? I think negative 78. Let's see if that seems to make sense. Okay, so that seems about right. Maybe 79. Okay, 78 and a half. Okay, so here is where I'm saying, you know, maybe we should have spent a bit more time on the scans, trying to capture this sort of information a bit better. Okay, and then let's make sure we've got our datum. Okay, and then we're going to just move this to here, I think. So what we're going to do is create 2 extrusions and then shell them out and make it look like the brackets that we had there. Okay, so let's click OK to that. Okay, so we've got our datum plane. And now what we want to do, let's create an extrude. And we're going to create, there we go. We're going to create extrude on this plane, turning this around, and we're going to use for our horizontal reference, let's use the Y, but then, oops, horizontal reference, yeah, I wanted to use this one. Surely not. Yeah. Okay. And then in terms of the origin, what we can do is try to use, let's say, the top here. Let's do this. And then on curve, then we can choose a point on this curve of the footprint. Okay, I'm still not happy with that. Okay, let's just go with that. Okay, perfect. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to create a couple of rectangles, and here's, we're kind of guessing. So we've got, well, what we can do is create some points here, and these will be on curve. And again, make sure work ports only. So let's try, the work part. So this would be sort of these curves, and then later on we're going to have some curves there. Okay, so let's click close here. So we're going to create a rectangle, and we're going to start, I guess, about here, and come down to about here. Okay, and then a second rectangle starting like up here and going down to about there. Now, they should probably be about the same size, but it doesn't look like they are. Okay, so let's do this. Let's do some dimensioning. So let's take this. Okay, let's make that, wow, a nice even 33. Let's make it 35 to be like so. And then let's dimension this guy. 96. Okay. Let's create equal length. So this is my motion curve, equal length here, and then the stationary curve will be this one. Apply. And then again, my motion curve, this one will be this one, and let's make that one there. Okay, and now we have to locate it. So I suggest here we're going to move this curve so that it's going to be there. Okay. And then we're going to move this curve. Whoops. Go back. I want the curve, not the point. And then I want it to be over top of that point. And then click OK. And we didn't get a whole heck of a lot of features there. But anyway, okay, so let's do that. Okay, so let's, I think, yeah, so we're good, right? So down to attached, sketch is still partially defined. Yeah, this one probably well, okay, let's to fully, yeah, and then this one is this way. So let's do from here to here. Oops, what happened there? Oh, sorry. It's newfangled. Okay, so from here. What's going on? Okay. So let's not do that. Oh, let's redo that. Okay. Now, let's do from here to here. One more time, from here to here. Okay. And then from here to here. And move this over here. And we'll click that. Okay, perfect. So now still partially 10 movable curves. Okay, let's never mind then. Okay, so then what we're going to do is we're going to start from 0 on this one, and then we're going to reverse it. And then we're going to do, instead of a value, we'll go until selected, and then we're going to select the base of that extrude that we did before. Okay, so it makes it a, and oh yeah, and kind of important, Boolean none. Okay, so these are going to be 3 different objects. Okay, and the reason why I do that is because now I want to go ahead and shell. So I'm going to shell this one and here. Okay, and then I'm going to shell, and then I have to select a different shell. And I'm going to choose here, and I'm going to choose this one open and this one open. Right? So now I've got this web there. Okay, now we can do edge blends. Right. There we go. Just to finish that off, to give it a finished look. So there you go. There's our solid. Okay? Thanks for listening.